Hello, Hardies. Welcome to the Hardies Hotline, your connection to Hope Valley. I am Cami, the hooked Hardy. Sorry, my left hand is indisposed at the moment. So, hooked Hardy, half hooked Hardy. I don't know. And you all know my wonderful co host and friend.
Hello, everybody. I'm Sarah, and I am the hawk-eyed Hardy. Still working on that. Oh my gosh. I think I just need to always do it that way now because it's just the way I do it.
It's the way you do it.
It's just the way I do
I
it. It
keep
makes no
telling you,
sense
I
at
like
all.
it.
It makes no sense at all what I do.
We want to wish a happy belated Mother's Day to everybody out there. We didn't get to record right after Mother's Day. I am wearing this necklace and set of earrings that my son gave me for Mother's Day. I thought, they're red. It's a very appropriate. So that's what
Oh,
I'm doing in honor of Mother's Day. So we hope that all of you wonderful women out there had a lovely Mother's Day. We are chatting 2 episodes this time. Season 11, episodes 5 and 6, Stronger Together and Believe. Okay, so the question of the day, it's a very
okay.
it's the very easy trivia question.
Okay.
What
No pressure.
was what was the celebration that happened in these episodes?
Hmm. Well, are you referring to the lovely Goldie's birthday?
I am. I am referring to the lovely Goldie's birthday. Did you also know that it is the little actress's birthday? It was her birthday a few days ago.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I don't know the date. I only saw some posts that
Hmm.
Kevin and Aaron and
Oh,
Pascal, they all posted happy birthday, Ellie. And it was
oh,
her second birthday a few days ago. So
so
isn't
sweet.
that sweet?
What timing?
I know, seriously. All right. So let's get started with the meat and potatoes, or maybe I should call him the vegetables, because that nobody wants to eat of the dinner. We gotta eat the rotten cooked spinach of Thomas Higgins.
Okay.
And like a bad penny, he just keeps turning up. We thought we were done with him.
We certainly did that. I mean, what a return from the
Yeah.
past.
Ugh.
So I admit I like it'd been a while since I saw season 4, and so I did go back and pull up just the one episode that he was in, um, Part of a Teacher, episode 6, and just wanted to kind of like refresh my memory what had happened with
Mhm.
Higgins. I mean, I knew what had happened, but like see how his mannerisms were and kind of it was a new actor this time playing him, but I gotta
Yeah.
say they did a great job getting somebody with a very similar demeanor and kind of air to the character.
Yeah.
Um, the consistency was really there. And I thought both did a great job with what they had. This new episode had a lot more scenes with
Yeah.
him, with his
Yeah.
characters. So you
There
got
was
to
just the
really,
one. There was just the
there was
one
just the one
scene.
scene. Yeah. So I think going back and taking what in essence was actually a really small role from a previous season and kind of deepening that was really interesting to watch and to see how they also like in season 4 when you're watching it for the first time, especially, like it really was a meaty storyline. Like it really did
Yeah, it was a
cover a
very
lot
meaty
of
situation.
it was a really deep situation, but it was like they really did seemingly go very in depth with it. And yet, and to the point where you were satisfied, like you really did feel like they dealt with the storyline. It didn't have a bunch of holes. You weren't like confused by anything, but still they were able to bring it back and without having really created a new situation they were able to go deeper into that old situation in a way that felt real. It didn't feel
Mm-hmm.
like they were making things up to add drama. They really were able to kind of take it in a new direction and deepen it and make it even more powerful without really adding a lot more new content, if that makes sense. Like, yes, he made new advances towards her and implied he was going to do so with Anna as well, but it wasn't this big dramatic new
Situation.
direction. Like it's what he's always done and it's just continuing to do. Um, and so it's the same situation, but you're still able to see it on a much deeper level and find out things. Hear Elizabeth talk about it and go into more detail than she had before, and really be able to feel like it felt very realistic.
Yeah. The actor who played Thomas in season 4 is Jason McKinnon. That's
Yes.
his name. I went back to look, and I also rewatched the episode, and I watched how they resolved it, because I thought I couldn't remember how detailed they went to get it all resolved. So I
Mhm.
thought that Higgins was supposed to be in jail or at least dismissed, and I went, how did he become the territorial superintendent when this has already been brought up and established? And then I went back and I went, oh,
Yeah.
they went and put the proof forward to Ray Wyatt and to Henry Gowan. And Ray Wyatt definitely was not going to go to the school board and
Try to get him in trouble, right?
try to get him in trouble, because he's slime just like Higgins is.
Yeah.
So, man, that is one thing that I have got to say. The more than just the mannerisms, the
Mhm.
slime was there. You feel oily and dirty when he comes into frame.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he did a really good job taking, I think it's always hard to take on a part that has been played by someone else,
Mm-hmm.
even if it wasn't like this iconic portrayal that like everyone's going to be
It was still
comparing,
someone else's role.
um,
Yeah.
it was still someone else's role. And I think he did an amazing job. Um, and I think it's funny that you mentioned Jason McKinnon too, because he's been in a ton of Hallmark things.
Even another one with Aaron Krakow. He was in the Christmas
Hmm.
movie,
Yes.
Sense and Sensibility and Snowmen.
Snowman, yeah.
Yeah.
And even though he's played some unlikable characters in other movies, I still like I didn't make the connection until I did look up who played the two different Higgins. And then I was like, it was him. I didn't remember it was him and that it was someone well known on Hallmark because
Oh, you
he
didn't.
just
Okay.
because he really seemed so much slimier than he does in all of his other roles. He really did take it to a different level.
James Cott
Yes.
is the new actor, James Cott. Yeah. So that is one thing that he definitely did, is he just took it and ran with it, and he made Higgins even slimier, because we only get Higgins for one scene in season 4, and it seemed to be more of a stubborn stance. I'm not going to make that letter disappear unless you go out to dinner with me. But this guy, he wheedled in and made, just like Elizabeth said, made her doubt everything. I remember my husband saying, her family's too rich for that to be an issue, that's there's too much influence. And at the time I just kind of brushed it off, but then going back and watching season 4, he had accused her he had accused her of using her family's influence to get her a better teaching job, because that did happen. Her mother went to Higgins and offered him money to keep her in Hamilton. She
Mhm.
wanted to go to Hope Valley.
Yeah.
So it's all this huge mix up and a lot of miscommunications, and a lot of problems on Thomas Higgins' side.
Right.
So
And I think, I mean, there's the balance of this is Hallmark. We want to keep it pretty clean. We want to
mhm,
have it be appropriate while also still trying to tell a very dramatic story and a
yeah,
very realistic story, because these things do happen, and you want to be able to portray real life and show real, what can a really strong woman do to stand up for this. I mean, I think that's a great story to tell.
yeah.
And at the same time, like, we still don't know, because they're trying to keep it very clean. We still don't know how bad it was.
That was my biggest question. How far did he go? How far did
because
these advances go?
because in season 4, that's all she said. He made advances.
That's all she says. That's
That
right.
is all that was said
Hmm.
ever. And then all he did was like talk about wanting to go out to dinner with her when they were kind of confronting each other in his office. And so then in this season, I feel like it got brought up a notch or two, potentially.
Yeah.
And that's probably as far as it will go on Hallmark, which is fine. But it does really raise the stakes, I think, that, you know, the producers aren't afraid to, really go there, bring up really tough situations, really kind of, I mean, push the boundaries, but in a very delicate way of being able to recognize the realities that people face in the world,
Yeah.
and it gives people hope when they are going through these big difficult situations, when
Yeah.
they can see that reflected even in a show like this.
Yeah. You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of Signed, Sealed, Delivered,
Mm,
the
yeah.
the episode Dark of Night. So
Mm.
these producers pulled a Martha Williamson. And I mean, in that episode Dark of Night, there's no question what happened.
No, and they do
But
actually say it, but
no, they don't actually say any, words. You just get,
okay.
yeah,
You
they
get
don't,
enough information.
you get enough information that you see what happened, but they say no words, and they
Yeah.
don't show anything inappropriate, obviously.
No, yeah.
And so but the whole time I was thinking, man, this this is this is going this is going somewhere really deep, and
Yeah.
they're telling it in a serious but careful and delicate manner.
Yeah. Another comparison between the two times that they were telling this story.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about this in the past, that we really want to see differences in how they approach Elizabeth's relationship with Nathan
Yeah.
versus how her relationship was with Jack. And
Right.
I found it really intriguing that she didn't say very much to Jack about Higgins. There was trust for sure. She entrusted him with the knowledge of what happened and everything, but not very much detail, and kept it very light and like, I'm just going to take care of this. And I felt like she was much more vulnerable with Nathan in
Hmm.
season 11. Yes, she shared more details, but she also showed that she didn't know what to do. And part of that is that she didn't. And things were kind of more pressing because he's here right now and I'm feeling threatened right now.
Yeah, and she couldn't go anywhere to escape it.
Right. And he's like coming into her domain, so to
Yeah.
speak, of the school,
Right.
and threatening, her livelihood and all the people around her. But I felt like there was just a very different dynamic in how she shared information with Nathan, how she, I mean, she's grown, her confidence has grown, but she also, I think, she seems to have embraced a little bit more that knowledge that even though she has to take care of it on her own, like there's nothing wrong with asking for help. There's nothing wrong with including other people and having more of a presence and a support
Hmm.
system. I think she's embracing that support system more. In
Hmm.
season 4, she didn't even want Abigail to help very much.
Yeah, but Abigail insisted on going.
Right. Um, and so I felt like that was just so much more mature in general to be like, you know what, yes, I have to take care of it, but I'm also not on my own. And that's
Hmm.
okay.
It's really funny that you would bring that up because you were watching the differences in Elizabeth, and I watched the differences in the men.
Oh no, I watched that too.
Oh,
I
you
just
did.
hadn't brought that up yet. I I'm afraid that when I start talking about Nathan, that's just gonna be the rest of the show. And
Oh boy. Well, okay, so I'll start it off,
you should start.
and then we'll see where we go.
That might be this whole episode. It just might be.
And you know what? If we need to do a part 1 and part 2, who cares?
This is the Nathan part.
So, one thing that I noticed that was the same about Nathan and Jack is how sick they looked
That's a
when,
good word. Yeah.
oh, I mean, that I still remember watching that episode for the first time in season 4 and
Mm-hmm.
kind of doing this while she was telling him, and she says it and he just looks to the side. He is sick. He is sick that the woman he loves was violated in some way. Doesn't matter how far it went. She got violated, and that made him sick. And I thought it's interesting because I'm comparing Nathan's reaction, because he had more of a reaction because he was there in town, like we've already said. Nathan had a
Yeah,
very,
he could do something about it
yes,
in
he could.
theory.
Yeah. So I noticed two things about Nathan. Number one, it made him sick when Elizabeth said how far he went. You could tell it was boiling his blood. But when she mentioned Anna, that's when he stood up. He's like, okay, that's enough. I'm not going to let this happen to two women of this town. And the other thing is the way that I describe Nathan's reaction is the pouncing of a tiger.
Mhm.
And that is the exact way that I described Lucas's reaction when Amos Dixon had her at gunpoint and he was emptying out the safe. uh he says, "You're coming with me." I can't remember the exact line, and she says, "I'm not going anywhere with you," and he twists her arm a little bit more and she reacts, and Lucas just looks, he just snaps his head over, and you can tell that if he was not being held at gunpoint, he would have wrapped his fingers around the man's neck. And
Yeah.
so it's very interesting that the two of them have the same kind of reaction, even though they're two very different men. It just shows when you threaten somebody they care about, they both are going to react. And
Yes.
then I'm going to skip way ahead here for just a
Yeah.
second.
Go for it.
But number one, he held his cool a lot better than I think anybody else would have when he came face to face with Thomas Higgins. So did Lucas, actually. The two of them really held their cool. And the other big thing is when they're sitting on the porch together. And number one, he comes and he says, "Do you want some company?" Which I think is beautiful, that he's coming to check on her, but he's not going to say, "Are you okay? Is there any more I can do?" He's keeping this casual, but when she leaned her head against his shoulder and the two of them are basically cuddling there on the porch, the first thought that came into my mind was, there is nothing better than feeling safe with a man you can truly trust after being threatened by another.
Right.
And yes, that's a beautiful scene for the romance of it, and it was very cute that they were cuddling, but that was the first thing that came to my mind, was that she feels so safe knowing that this man is never going to take advantage of her, and that this man is someone that she can completely trust. On top of that, she has feelings for him, and so she feels safe with him right after she's been threatened by another.
Hmm.
And that's getting a little emotional. That is a beautiful thing, that she could feel that safe. Okay. Whew.
Quick detour over to Lucas, since you mentioned that.
Yes.
Um, I struggled with that scene at first because I wanted to see more of a reaction
Oh, you
from him,
did? Okay.
at thinking give me a break. Like, we know you are like still have loving, caring feelings for this woman.
Yeah.
Um, and who's to say, like, if he knew from their relationship, if she had mentioned any aspect of
I
that.
was wondering about that.
But when I rewatched it, because I was so like fixated on that fact, I really I came to understand again how smart Lucas is. Because if
Yeah.
he had made any emotional connection in that conversation, that would have undermined his authority
It would have
completely.
it would have discredited him.
Which, granted, we know Higgins knows that that was her ex-fiance because he made it very clear that he knew that.
Oh yeah.
However, it not bringing it into that conversation at all, and Higgins not bringing that up, which is interesting
Yeah, that is
when you're
very
feeling
interesting.
threatened. Um, but I thought that that was actually really, really smart, and I think it shows again why Lucas is perfect for politics and for such a role of leadership, because he can put the good of the greater good ahead of his own feelings.
Yeah.
He's able to say, yeah, personally I probably do want to strangle you, but I also know that in order to actually defeat you, I have to play it cool. I have to play my cards close to the vest, like he's very good at.
And go by the
And
book.
yeah, and go by the book, and that is the way to defeat you and get you out of here, and prevent you from doing this to anyone, not just Elizabeth.
Yeah. Thomas
And the
Higgins is going to jail this time.
and the one way that I did think that he slipped or made it personal was when he said, I believe Elizabeth, instead of saying Mrs. He called her Mrs. Thornton in every other line in that scene. But in that scene, it seemed like he kind of slipped in the, like, I believe Elizabeth.
Mm.
And I believe every woman who has made accusations against you.
Mm-hmm.
So he kind of, I think, dug in a little bit and then like pulled back and was like, brought it back professionally.
Mm-hmm.
And so that really was a very well thought out scene, I think. Even though in your heart you kind of want to see him like defend her a little bit more, he actually was defending her the very best that he could.
Yeah. And there was something very final about now get out of my office. You know, I mean, just let's, the knife is already there. Let's just give it that one little twist.
Yeah,
It was good.
it was one of those scenes where it's like, I think the first time you watch it, you kind of get that impression of like what you were hoping to happen. And then you just are like, okay, I see why.
Yeah. And okay, I know this is probably not what you want to hear right now, but that scene restored my faith in Edwin a little bit.
So I mean, it didn't make him look bad, but I don't know that
No.
I mean, here's the thing though. Here's the thing. That scene, yes. But also Edwin seemed to have kind of a history with Higgins, which in an earlier scene, which did spark my curiosity.
Okay. Okay. So you're thinking, yeah, they knew each other and he introduced him. Yeah, I'm wondering when he, when Edwin introduced Lucas to Higgins, I was wondering, did Lucas recognize the name or had he forgotten the name and he just knew that someone had bothered her?
Right.
So,
Exactly. But he also said he had heard of Higgins,
yes.
which didn't
But
seem like a negative comment. So
in the professional capacity, it seemed like.
exactly, it didn't sound like he was referring to anything else. So
Yeah.
if he was aware of what happened to Elizabeth in the past, I don't think he knew a name.
Yeah.
That just doesn't make sense. But let's also really think about Elizabeth did not know that he was now the superintendent.
True.
And in theory, Lucas probably has heard the name of whoever the superintendent is. He probably knew that was Higgins. So if he had known of that history, he never would have pushed her into doing this merger,
No.
knowing full well that that would have brought this aggressor from her past into a position of power over her. I mean, that just would
Yeah.
never have happened.
No, absolutely not. Oh man. The other thing is that we've said this before how smart Lucas is, but he let Higgins put the nail in his own coffin because he went in Higgins went into the office and he said his piece and he was trying to get Nathan and Elizabeth in trouble with the governor, and only after he had finished Lucas says, "They spoke to me before you came in here." And you could just feel the blood draining from his face. Like,
I know.
oops.
I think he was banking on his threat to Elizabeth about Lucas was clear that he was trying to make her upset by saying that the governor dumped her. He
Yeah,
probably knew that it was the other way around or sensed that it was the other way around
I
or had
never
heard
even thought of
rumors or
that. That's a
something.
good point.
So if he was thinking that Elizabeth had really dumped the governor, he probably thought it was a shoo-in to have the governor's support against her.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I didn't even think about it that way. I know that some of Team Lucas fans are a little upset that Elizabeth didn't correct him, but then there are others who say, how can you be thinking clearly in that moment when somebody who has threatened you all of a sudden reappears when you thought it was done and over with? And then I didn't even think about that he said it on purpose to unbalance her and to get her upset.
Oh,
That's
I'll bet. See what she would
that's
say.
brilliant.
And if you think about like in the scheme of things, like here is this person who potentially could be threatening you. What difference does it make if they've got that detail wrong? Like
Mm,
they're scum. It's not like setting the record straight with them is going to have any difference in any outcome whatsoever.
yeah.
It's not going to make you look better or Lucas look better, or like there's literally nothing it will do other than create more tension between you.
Well, and the other thing is, the thought that I had is her mind is racing a million miles an hour trying to think how to handle this situation. She probably didn't even hear him. You know,
Very
she's probably just thinking, what am I going to say next? How do I get out of this? How do I get him out of here? You
right.
know, so she probably didn't even hear it.
I
So,
will say my best reaction from Elizabeth during her conversations with him
okay.
is when she's looking at the book and she's saying what did she call it? She said it's very prescriptive, don't you think? And he's like, I wrote it.
I wrote
Just
it.
you could see her almost stifle a giggle. Like
Oh,
like not a real true giggle, but like a, well, that makes sense.
yeah.
That's
Like
why it's so crazy, you know?
figures.
That's why I don't like a word of it. It's because it's from him.
I didn't even think about that. Man, you really are the Hawkeye.
With my eyes closed.
So before we move on, I know that you said you have a lot of thoughts about Nathan from these two episodes. And so we've already opened the door. We might as well walk through.
We might as well walk through.
Yeah.
I don't know how to put it into words. I really don't. It we spoke the other day with other Hardys kind of about season 11, and I think that there was the theme kept coming up that like the first 5 episodes were very much the awkward phase with
Yeah.
Elizabeth and Nathan, and that episode 6 really brought it up to another level.
Turning point.
Turning point. I have analyzed this a lot in the last couple of days
Oh
in
my.
my head. And I'm not sure again exactly how to phrase it. And I know that some people will probably dislike the way that I'm feeling about it. But to me, like we've talked before, I did not let myself get attached to either suitor during the triangle.
Right.
I really just didn't want to be disappointed if it went an opposite direction. So I really
Right.
didn't ever, in live watching season 6, 7, 8, I never really loved either one of them with her
Okay.
because I was trying to hold back
Got it.
and not enjoy it, which is a weird way to watch a show that you
Very,
love.
especially when you love it the way you do.
Yeah. So I have to say that I was never even as like, and then when I knew who it was, I knew it was Lucas. I let myself fall in love with that storyline.
Mm-hmm.
When we saw that it's moving away from that, I'm trying to like keep an open mind and look back. And I've never disliked Nathan. I've never disliked Nathan for her, but I've never been in love with the idea of either one of them with her. And so I am saying this as a positive, but it may come across differently. Episode 6, I'm in love with it.
Okay.
The difference in Nathan's mannerisms, in the way he carries himself, again, like we talked about with Elizabeth, he's matured as well, having gone through being rejected by her and then being rejected by a bunch of other people all in a row.
Oh man. Mounting
He's
around.
had a lot of experiences that have really
He's been
shaped
making
him.
his rounds.
He's been making his Mountie rounds. But I just feel like he's a different person. He's grown so much. The way he is approaching this time with Elizabeth is so different and so much more mature and so much more thoughtful. And it doesn't have that like angst of like, oh, I really am in love with her, but I feel bad because of what happened with her husband, and I have all this history, and I have the secret, and I have like there was just all these other aspects of it that have
Mhm.
been resolved, and everything's cool and they're comfortable with each other, and they've built a relationship founded on friendship and trust. And without the romantic possibility, they were able to do that a lot more closely, I think, than they would have if they were dating and trying to become friends at the same time. Like, I feel like they
Yeah.
were able to really build a strong bond, completely oblivious to the fact that there would ever be anything romantic. And that made it so much deeper and so much stronger, that they have this like super strong foundation to build on. And while they could say to themselves, like, oh, we don't want to lose this friendship with each other, so we're more nervous about trying to get together, it's the opposite. It's that we know that this is right because we've got this strong foundation. And that just seems to be the mindset, even though a lot has been unspoken so far. That just really seems to be the mindset that both of them are going into it, feeling much more confident and mature and stable without
Yeah.
the drama. And I know in one of the scenes from Coming Up, there's a comment about him feeling potentially in anybody's shadow. But to me, I'm not picking up on that. Like, he might feel that, but it's not this overarching, like, oh my gosh, I'm in the shadow of Jack or Lucas. Um, and so I'm feeling like his confidence is overwhelming, and it's just exuding that, like, I mean, that's really romantic. That's really sexy to like have a guy that's like, I don't have all this baggage that's weighing
Yeah.
me down, And so the way that he's just carrying himself around her is just so much more fun to watch, and so much more like attractive to see that kind of energy being put forth between them. And so the scenes when he's talking to her, every single scene when he's talking to her in episode 6, he's just very confident and very supportive and very matter of fact. There weren't any games. There wasn't any, like, there was some teasing, but there wasn't anything that could be interpreted as awkward or interpreted as confusing or any of those things. And so it just was so refreshing.
You make a really, really excellent point because in episode 5, he was still doing it. He stopped, which I was so glad of. But, we get the long gazes of him seeing Elizabeth and Lucas talking and him ignoring Elizabeth because he saw them talking, and so he gets, I'll say it, he gets petty. And that was petty, and he got into his own head, and he didn't ask her. And so, he's kind of giving her the cold shoulder. But when he finally says, I thought you and Lucas were starting, and he didn't finish his sentence, but she knew what he was going to say. And she says, Nathan, no. And he said something that he has every right to ask, what am I to you? He has every right to ask that question because she's taken him for a bit of a ride. Let's be
It's
honest here.
he's been through a lot.
He has been a lot where she is concerned. But the other thing that was so beautiful is the turnaround when, so number one, when he says, can I carry your books to school? That's just precious. That was adorable. And he even said, what are you doing for lunch? Just making it cool, making it casual, but taking obvious steps. and
Yes.
and when,
Yes.
yeah, making obvious steps, but not making a huge emotional deal about it. And when she was rattled by Thomas Higgins. It was my fear that he was going to go back into his default of feeling rejected and he was going to regress. And he didn't. He got suspicious. He knew something was wrong. And
he didn't start thinking, oh, it's me.
yes.
She's doing this to me.
Yes, exactly.
He could tell it was different.
Yeah, he knew that something was wrong. And then when he found her by the pond, he said, "What's wrong?" He didn't start apologizing. He didn't, and then obviously when he saw that she was crying, he got very concerned. What is it? What's wrong? And I realized something right when you were talking. It did not hit me until I heard you saying it. I think what the big turning point is that all of that other stuff suddenly doesn't matter. Being faced with a very real situation. I think that Nathan really decided to step it up as a man. His services were needed as a Mountie, but he also stepped it up as a man and said, "Okay, I've got to stop. She needs me. I'm going to be there for her in both ways." And all of that other stuff, it's in the past. And I didn't realize that that's what was happening between the two of them until you started talking about it. So, congratulations. But by the same token, it's also interesting that we kind of got the blessing given by the other guy. We got by the first fiance.
Yes.
Yeah, that I really really liked both of those scenes, the one with Lucas and Nathan and the one with Lucas and Elizabeth. I thought both of them were really really good. The problem is they're not, I still like Lucas because he's being such a great guy about this. So it still makes me sad that his chance for happiness got interrupted. But still, it was really good that you can see his face. He hobbles in with his cane, he sees Nathan playing darts by himself, and you can see that head tilt and that little smile, like, poor guy, I know what he's going through. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna help him out a little bit. And so he kind of gave his blessing to Nathan that I would rather have her as a friend than not have her in my life at all. And that set Nathan into motion to go and talk to Elizabeth. And then Lucas tells Elizabeth, if you ever find the chance to find happiness, promise me that you'll jump in with both feet. And then when they do the vote of the town council, you see Elizabeth look back at Nathan, and then you see the camera pan over to Lucas, seeing that look and him being okay and at peace with it.
And it's interesting that you brought that up because I actually now, in looking at both episodes together, I think that also plays into Nathan's confidence is getting that okay from
That's true.
Lucas.
Yes.
Because it not only is like, okay, you and I are cool, like we're not going to be having any confrontations, you and I, if I pursue this, but it also 100% affirms that Lucas is not looking to get back together with Elizabeth. And so he doesn't have to feel threatened. He doesn't have to feel on edge about the triangle, about all these other possibilities. He can simply be courting Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Without anything else going on or interfering with that. And also, I loved just the juxtaposition of that scene and how similar it was to Nathan going and talking to Lucas when Elizabeth had turned him down, and kind of giving him the it's gonna be okay. I'm not okay now, but it's gonna be okay, and you should really do what you need to do, and kind of, advising him, giving him the green light, so to speak,
Yeah.
that I'm bowing out, since I've been told I'm out, bowing out. But just that, like, I see that it's over. I'm conceding. You're up. And it really was like the complete opposite. And I feel like oh,
I'm sorry.
and,
I'm sorry. When you said you're the only thing that I could think of is Mike saying the word tag.
when Mike said what?
When Mike said tag, you're it to leave.
Oh. And I also feel like that's another reason Lucas even did it this time, is because he not that he feels like he owes him, but he's like, you know what, Nathan did this for me when he was in this position, and that's the least I can do, is pay it back.
That's beautiful. That really is beautiful. And if that's what the writers had in mind, then I always said you and I should go write for Hallmark. So you just proved my point. And if that's not what they were thinking, well, it turned out great anyway.
Exactly.
Right. So speaking of tag you're it, let's go to the other tag you're it, where it was literally said, okay, there, I hate to be cheesy about this, but it almost makes me want to alter a poem. Leah's in the mayor's office, all is right with the world. You know, so because I always thought that Lee should have been mayor in the first place. No offense to Mike Hickam, but I just didn't think that Mike had it in him to be the town leader. And I think being the head of the hotel and saloon is perfect for Mike. It's because he is in charge of something, but it's its own little domain. He's not in charge of the grand scheme of things, in this sense, the town. But, even without that, Lee has been the savior of the town, the cool head of the town, the prominent businessman of the town since he came in season 2. I mean,
Yeah.
I watched the season 4 finale as well as season 4 episode 6, but that's when Lee is struggling with Cody's sickness because he's remembering his little brother Patrick, and how Patrick asked him to read to him the last chapter of Tom Sawyer, but he was tired. And so he said, "Can I read to you in the morning?" And he didn't make it through the night. And Rosemary says to him, "Why did you never tell me about this?" And what he said is so telling of his character. I'm supposed to have all the answers, not come with the problems. And I thought, oh my goodness, that is what Lee sees himself as. No wonder the man wanted to be mayor, because he's always being come to have the answers. And so Lee becoming the mayor is the most natural thing in the world to me. And I'm saying I'm glad it's finally happened, and that's the way it should have been.
So I will put a caveat on the way you phrased that.
Okay.
I believe it is the way it should be. I do not believe it is the way it should have always been.
Okay.
I think it is so amazing, the arc they created with that makes you appreciate it now. because
that is very true. Yes.
I think if Lee had just been voted mayor originally, you wouldn't have had quite the same. You would have been like, yeah, okay, that's who we expected. But you wouldn't have had this like, this
you
is
wouldn't have Mayor
why.
Maisie Hickam. You wouldn't have the Mayor Maisie Hickam debacle.
You wouldn't have had that whole thing. You wouldn't have had Hope Valley Days that Hickam came up with.
Very true.
You maybe wouldn't have had the whole fire truck wagon that he had.
You make an excellent point.
There's many factors like storyline wise, but it was also such a great character development for Hickam that got him where he is now.
Very true.
And I think you're right about him being in the right level for his talent and for his self-esteem and confidence and success. But I also think he would have always wondered and potentially been trying to do other things. Whereas now he's tried it. He knows that's not the right fit. He can do this and be happy without feeling a sense of regret or wonder of what could have been. And so he can really do this by choice of this is what I'm choosing is my happiness. And I think that's much more powerful. And I think it helped the town see who he was and respect him more, even though they didn't like him a lot as mayor. They grew to respect more and understand him more when he stepped down. And like everybody is very aware now that he knows who he is and he's finding his place. And I think that's really powerful. And I think for Lee, the same thing. Not realizing your dream when you want it is really hard. Yeah. And it makes you stop and think, and it makes you wonder, and it makes you evaluate your life and what you're doing and his calling, so to speak. And he kept wondering, I thought that was it. I thought that's what I was supposed to do. And then now I don't know. And it helped them really step through the last couple years of their lives very differently. And if he had already been the mayor when they had Goldie, like that would have been very different. And I think it was the way that it was supposed to be. And each one of them from the opposite point of view had to really come to terms with who they were and what they wanted out of life. And now they're both where they need to be, so to speak. And I think that is more powerful. And that's why, even though we were all like, Hickam one? Like, how? Like, even though there was that whole piece to it, this is the magic I find in When Calls the Heart is, and I think a lot of these things are choreographed by the writers, but I think a lot of things are also like fall into place and maybe weren't what they originally planned, but worked out even better than what they planned. But I have just said time and time again, there are things that you're watching them and they don't really make sense. And you're like, well, okay, whatever. And then it falls into place and feels like it was meant to be that way the whole time.
So I can't go as far as that.
There are things that have felt that way to you as well. And that's all I'm saying. Yeah.
No, I'm talking about this particular choice.
Okay.
No, absolutely. No, on 3/4 of that whole thing, I stand corrected. Yes.
Okay.
So let me say it this way, because I agree with almost everything that you said right there. So
almost. So close.
So politically, it's who it should have always been. Storyline wise, great choice. How about that? Can we go with that?
That it's a great. What was the last word you said?
So storyline wise, perfect choice. Politically, it probably
should have been Lee. Yes, but like,
but
in the scheme, in the scheme of watching the TV show and seeing. But also, just if you're thinking about just character development,
correct? Like, yes, I
they
included that
would
in
not
storyline.
be, they would not have, both of them in opposite ways would not have had the growth that they have had with, you know, you, you don't get growth by getting handed what you want, even
Yes,
if you
that is
deserve
very
it,
true.
even if you deserve it.
Right.
And that's a tough one.
That's
And
life. That's
I can
life.
say that, and I can say that from personal experience
Me too.
because I love I love my day job. It is quite literally my dream position. I'm very happy. And I applied for it multiple times before I got it.
Yeah.
And that's tough to be like, oh my gosh, I found the thing. This is, I think, what I want to do. This is what I meant to do. And then not
Mm-hmm.
get to do it. And to have that confidence that I'll tell you disappears for a while, but to build that back up to even try again to do something that didn't work out the first time,
Mm-hmm.
that that is where you really find yourself, I think.
Yeah. And this is a totally flimsy note, but now that Mike isn't the mayor anymore, number one, he doesn't have to deal with his sister, but so much more importantly, he can concentrate on his courtship with May.
Which, might I add, is going quite nicely.
Let's go there, shall we? Let's go.
Please.
Let's go to Eminem and M. So I know this happened in the second episode, but I don't care. I'm mentioning it first. That dinner was beautiful. The dinner was absolutely beautiful. And I think that you mentioned previously that you saw on social media Amanda Wong actually making these dishes with her mother.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
that's amazing.
So she was making them, and then her mother and her grandmother were both there to try them.
Oh, that's
and she was kind of showing the different steps of how she's doing it. And so people were commenting like, "Oh, you need a cooking show. This is so fun." But she was making the dumplings, and it was so cute. And she was describing, like how she makes them and why, like what the traditional aspects of it is. And it was really, really fun. And I have loved hearing different actors on the show talk about their involvement in aspects of their character on screen and being able to bring in cultural references or how things would have been when we were dealing with I remember Natasha had talked a lot back with what was the other school guy that was
I don't remember, but
was trying to pull Angela out of school. And she did an interview where she talked about how she had called up her mother and said, what would you have done if this was us when I was a child and I was, and they were trying to kick me out of school because of my race and like all of these, and like how would you have dealt with these types of situations? And they were able to really then take that information from real people that have dealt with stuff and that the producers actually were incorporating that into the writing and like trying to make it as realistic and not just something that could have happened to someone, but actually what was happening with the people who are acting it to make it that much more relevant.
Well, and if there was a place that the Chinese culture was completely put on a silver platter, it was this dinner. You had the traditional dress, you had the dishes, you had the lanterns,
the decorations.
You had Mike pulling out the chopsticks. Oh my gosh, that was a moment I did not see coming. I didn't,
and it's perfect Mike humor. And on a personal note, it was hilarious because in my preschool classroom, we have been studying different countries around the world, and we literally were on some different countries around Asia this week.
Oh my gosh.
we had been like like trying to use chopsticks with the 3-year-olds and like just giving them to them at snack time so they could play around with them and kind of figure out just the basics. And so it was just like really fresh in my mind.
Oh my
So
gosh.
personally, it was like the timing of that was hilarious. I thought was, oh, so funny.
That part of the episode was written just for you.
I was like, perfect timing.
So let's talk about what he says really quick. Yes, I wrote it down. You probably already knew that.
Yep.
I want to be part of your life, your whole life. I want that too, Mike.
I almost wondered if he was just going to propose right then.
I
was like,
know.
That's
The
kind of
thought
sounds like
crossed, the thought crossed my mind.
sounds like how you'd start that out.
I know. Yeah. And, you know, so I think you and I can both agree that our prediction is that the Mike and May wedding is happening this season. So my question is she going to get married in a white wedding dress, or is she going to bring the culture back in for a second time and wear traditional Chinese bride attire? That will be fun to see.
Oh, I hope so. I hope that it's very traditional. And I think if you are like, there's always that argument, right? Like bringing two traditions together or bringing two cultures together.
Uh-huh.
I There is not a better person to embrace that than Mike Hickam.
Oh,
I
I
can't
know.
see any other character on this show being more supportive of someone's heritage.
Well,
Like I just,
Florence,
well, yes, okay,
yeah,
yes.
don't forget, Florence was very supportive of Ned's Jewish heritage that nobody knew about. But that's okay.
It's okay. This one's a little more obvious, but yeah, there's in
There's
all the
nothing
years that we've
better.
well, in all the years that we have wanted someone for Hickam, it never really like I guess I never really thought about what kind of a match would be good for him
Yeah.
specifically. But in looking at this, it is perfect for him because he can throw himself full board into it with this like, I'm going to learn parts of your language. I'm going to learn how to eat with chopsticks. I'm going to, like he can like there's actual things he can identify very easily to learn about and embrace and show his support. And that's the kind of guy he is. What he will learn about something and just go full board.
Yeah.
Like he did that with the oil company, he did that with the sawmill, he did that with the hotel. He very much embraces new ideas and new everything. Like I think that's just a very wise pairing.
Yeah. And it reminds me a lot of I cannot remember the movie, but Ava, she's not on the show
Oh,
anymore, but she was in a multicultural wedding movie where
make me a
she,
match.
yes, thank you, make me a match. And I love what they did because they had, I mean, I have been told that weddings in India go on, or the Indian culture go on for days.
Mhm.
So, but what I love that they did is she got married in the traditional Indian dress, and so did he. And then for the reception, she had a wedding gown and he had a tuxedo. I said, and
Oh,
and they didn't say a thing. They didn't say anything. It was just there for you to see. And I went, How perfect is that?
Yeah,
It's
really
it's the
honoring both
perfect
families,
way.
both
Yes.
traditions. Yeah.
It's the perfect way to honor both. And so I'm really, really curious how they're going to do Mike and
Mhm.
May's wedding, especially if they choose to make it a bigger deal than just a pass along thing, which I think they will.
I think they will, especially if my prediction of a Nathan Elizabeth elopement comes true at
Oh
some
boy,
point. Then
here
they
we
got to
go.
do a big wedding first for Hickam. Has to be the bigger one because you can't, yeah, they can't all be the same. Um, so a few things that just came to mind. One, it was really great hearing more about May's family. It's
Hmm.
really sad to learn that, both of her parents are gone,
Yeah.
but she does have a brother, even though
Yep.
he is off sailing somewhere in the world.
Merchant Marines.
Hopefully we will meet him at some point. That would be wonderful.
That would be
Um,
cool.
Would be really cool. Um, yeah. Also, it just popped into my head and just gonna throw it out there because I love to with my predictions, but I think somebody somewhere, I think we need to have the woman propose to the man somewhere on the show.
In 1920,
Yeah, yeah. I
Sarah.
couldn't you see it with Mike and May?
Oh, I can definitely see it with Mike and May. I'm a traditionalist. I just
I
think it's
know.
so romantic when the man does it.
Oh, oh, you know what would be great
Oh boy, something
is
hit
if
you.
it was one of those where they both wanted to ask each other and they both planned something and then did it at the same time. That would be so great. And for that couple, it would work
It would work
really
perfectly.
well.
And I mean, so
And it would be so cute and funny.
and a proposal, I'll admit, a proposal from May would work with this relationship.
And there might be like, I don't know a lot about Chinese tradition. There might be like a Chinese ritual that you do for the groom that maybe she could incorporate into it. Maybe it wouldn't be a proposal so much as her initiating the conversation.
So I don't know if this tradition happens in China, but I do know that it's from Okinawa and Japan.
Okay.
It's called the tea ceremony. And I saw it in a movie. Yes, I saw it in a
It
movie.
sounds familiar. I feel like I've maybe seen this movie.
Karate Kid 2 is where I
Yes,
saw it.
yeah, okay. Yeah. Yep, I know that movie like the back of my yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
me too, darling. But it happens twice. It happens with Mr. Miyagi, and
Mhm.
Daniel and Kumiko are witnessing it happening. And
Mhm.
with Mr. Miyagi and Yukie, his former love, who we find out never married. So sweet. And then Kumiko performs it for Daniel. And what the ceremony meant for Mr. Miyagi and Yukie was they were falling in love again. So we can only assume that the tea ceremony is for falling in love. Now, it could have just been for dramatic effect. I don't know. I do know that the ceremony,
Are a lot of customs. There are a lot of customs out there. There's
I do
probably
know that
something along
yeah,
those
there's
lines.
got to be something. I read about it a long time ago, and it did say that it takes years to perfect. So it takes a very long time to perfect it. So whether or not it's for romance, that could just be for dramatic effect. It was really good for dramatic effect.
Mhm.
I mean, obviously, if we both remember it, it was very effective. But that would be cool if they did something to that effect. It could be May's way of proposing to Mike, and then Mike can do the traditional Western proposal. So,
I think it could be really fun
Oh dear.
because remember how when Jack got the ring and Ned knew about the ring and it was
Yeah.
like that, like, can you just imagine if Ned knew that Hickam had a ring and then May was trying to order stuff for a tea thing for like, and then they like, or like Florence knows about one of them and Ned knows about the other one, and then they're talking to each other and realize that they're both going to do the same thing. And like, it could be really funny.
It could be. It could be. All right. Before we leave Mike and May, we have to talk about the other M, Maisie.
I've really grown to like her. Obviously not 100%, but
I would hope not.
as a sister, I'm loving the family dynamic. And I think it's really fun because it is another aspect of pushing Mike out of the comfort zone and like he's having to grow up. He's having
Yeah.
to like stand up to her and see her in a different light and like understand what she's doing politically. Um and I think that's really interesting.
I got to tell you though, if one of my brothers tried to pull a stunt like that with me in that kind of
Yeah.
situation, oh, I'd be mad.
Oh, 100%. But it also worked out really, really well because she totally underestimated him.
Yeah, she did. And we find out, and it's amazing what acupressure can do, right? Made her super comfortable and even a little expressive. When she said, I mean, we gathered that that was what
Oh,
was going on, but for her to say it out loud to her brother's girlfriend, number one, it had to prove how off her guard she was, because
mm-hmm.
she never would have said that if she was thinking straight. And number two, she said it to his girlfriend. So yeah. But just,
Yeah,
I mean, really, come on. You are purposefully being unreasonable so that this whole thing won't go through. Thanks a lot. You know, I made a list of her demands. Did you make a list of the demands this time?
I did not make the list. No.
Okay. So, new train station, new railroad extension, a town dump, a baseball diamond, a band shell. That took me a couple of times in turning on the closed caption. I was like, what is he saying? I can't, but a band shell, something for the band to sit in so that the acoustics are really good for the sound to come out. Like, oh, a band shell. Got it. Got it. And then new public transportation system with 10 passenger buses, and all of the access roads go through Benson Hills. I mean, good grief.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
And then she got a dose of her own medicine when, I mean, can we just say Lucas is being really smart when he asks and practically begs Henry, please come and work with me. You know what you're doing here. And like he says, can you throw us a bone? And it put, and Henry has such a good business sense. You can't keep him from his true calling. You know, hazelnuts are all well and good, but you can't keep him from his true calling. And because he knows what to do. And he knew that just saying, we agree. You do? You know, that throws her off balance, and then they're able to talk more. And I'm still wondering how the merging of the towns and the co-mayorship is going to work in the grand scheme of things, but I guess that's what we're going to find out.
Right. It will be interesting to see. I know, we're hearing lots of theories. Some people don't think it will go through. Some people don't think that the actual resort will ever get built. It will be interesting to see because some things in the past that have been these big life-changing events haven't come to fruition, like the Foundry. And
The
so
theater.
and the theater, well, yes, that was really only life-changing for one person, though, let's be honest.
Hey, 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 it was very life-changing for this viewer.
I'm talking about for the town of Hope Valley.
Fine.
Town of Hope Valley, it was really just for Rosemary. um, so yeah, so it will be interesting to see what actually transpires with that. It doesn't seem like the merger would go through
I don't
because
know.
then
Yeah.
it's not Hope Valley anymore
Yeah, that
in the same way that it is like
Hope Benson Hills Valley. I don't know.
so I mean it will be interesting to see what happens with that. I do feel like if things go through, it's not going to go through the way that is in the plans currently. Something will change because it just doesn't seem sustainable for the show.
Mm-hmm.
Really. They could
Yeah.
still build a resort, but maybe it'll be smaller, maybe it'll be in a slightly different location.
Maybe it'll be according to Opal's GV.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what goes on with that. In terms of Gowan, um, the other piece, the other piece that I would just like to see them kind of address at some point is he's very afraid of doing this business stuff again because he's afraid that he will go
Go
down the
back
wrong
into
path.
old habits. Yeah.
You know, he's afraid of what path he will choose to take to for the win. You know, he thinks that he will want to win at, all costs and doesn't want to do that. However, ultimately, I don't think he succumbed to pressure of getting back into what he's good at. Ultimately, he's doing a favor for a friend
Yeah, he's
right now.
not doing this out of pressure. He's doing this because his friends need him.
Well, exactly. But I mean, like, everyone's saying, like, what, you have to do this, you're so good at it,
Oh, yeah.
that's not why he's doing
No.
he's doing it because he knows and he feels like these people deserve it. Like I really want to see more of I still want to see more of the Gowan and Lucas friendship. I want to see that
Yeah.
develop a little more.
Yeah, agreed.
And
So,
it kind of would have been neat to see Gowan have a short little run in with Higgins. I thought I was waiting for that
oh,
because that just would have really been interesting. Because
it would have.
he would have remembered that name.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, at least you would think so. Can we just talk about Martin's acting again and just how great he is and how when Joseph says that Henry has gotten wiser, he takes off his hat and says, "You mean grayer?"
It's a great balance between the really heavy scenes with Henry and the really great lighthearted funny scenes.
Yeah, I
He
was
can
watching.
really go both ways.
Yeah, when I was watching the season 4 finale, I saw Henry ask Bill, "Please don't transfer me until I hear word on if
On
Cody is
Cody.
okay or not." Bill succumbs and says, "Well, it's better weather tomorrow anyway," trying to be crusty old Bill. And Henry just leans against the prison bars and just closes his eyes, and you can tell he's starting to pray. And it was it's there because Rosemary says the only thing we can do is pray. And
Yeah, I question that only a touch because later he says he doesn't remember how to pray.
yeah,
So
but
uh,
I think
that's
that was
the
one
one
of the
little
moments.
tiny thing that of miscontinuity that I struggle with. But
If he's not praying about it, he's doing some very deep thinking about it.
yes.
Um, I want to put in just a tiny little caveat here because we didn't talk about this when we talked about Lee being the mayor. I love how he ditches the soiree idea and has weekly meetings every Wednesday at 4 o'clock when people can come and bring their concerns to him because he is a man of the people. And he
Yeah,
doesn't
no, that
want
was
to,
wonderful.
yeah, he doesn't want them to be afraid to approach him. And and once again, I was watching season 4, and poor Abigail just gets accosted constantly about problems in the town. And I remember when we had our discussion with the Hardy Observer and that group of Hardys, that was one of the things they brought up was what if Lee is constantly getting accosted now? And I said, you know what? I don't think they will, because he's giving them a time to address concerns. So I think he'll get accosted on the street less. At least that's what I
Yeah.
hope will
No,
happen.
I think if you give people the opportunity, I think not only will it give them a place to do it, but I think people are even less likely to use the opportunity because it is there.
Because
So
it's
it's not
there,
like,
yeah.
like I think with Abigail, everybody's like, I have to go talk to her now because who knows when I'll get a chance to talk to her again.
Yep.
Like, and if they always know that's a chance, they might be like, well, I am kind of busy right now. Maybe I'll go next week.
Right.
I mean, just people, life gets busy, and maybe it isn't important to demand that the noise ordinance start at 8 o'clock. Maybe, like maybe I don't need to fight this right now. Maybe I can do it next week.
I had flashes. I had flashes of Molly and Lee flirting in season 2 to make Rosemary jealous, and now I look at them and they're talking about noise levels and just went, oh gosh, look where they've gone.
That's pretty funny.
Okay, Sarah, I'm going to have to ask you to don something, if you please. Maybe that should have been the question of the day.
Okay, are we ready for a little sleuthing?
We are ready for the sleuthing. So, there it is.
We are ready for the sleuthing.
All right. So, Lucas's mysterious past, recent and far back, keep coming up.
They do, don't they?
Yes, they do. So, first of all, I am very glad that they solved the mystery of Jeanette saying that she was engaged to Lucas. There was a reason why Lucas never mentioned it. It's because he didn't talk about it. She did. And there was never a ring. And so, because I remember that was something that we were very focused on, is what? He was engaged to her? And so,
Yeah. I can't get over how many times people on this show say they're engaged when they're not. It just keeps happening. Oh, I lost you.
or in May's,
it's happening multiple times.
or in May's case, married and not.
There you go. Or not married and actually married.
Goodness gracious.
There's a lot of confusion in the 1910s and 1920s about what marriage is, apparently.
Indeed. But this mystery has been solved. Gratefully.
They were not engaged.
At least not formally. And so therefore he saw it as not. She saw it as yes, or she was just saying that to be spiteful and to throw Elizabeth off balance.
Well, she definitely didn't love Elizabeth. So
no, and
no love lost there.
Yeah, no. And but I did find it very interesting that Lucas said that they were together briefly.
Yeah. And they seemed to be much closer than briefly.
Yeah. And it just brings back when he went to go and help her when her shop burned down. Just like, why? Just, Why are you helping this woman that you had obviously put behind you? But he still felt responsible for her somehow, and she was definitely not a 50-year-old widow.
It certainly changes perspectives.
Certainly does, doesn't it? Anyway, but a much more recent past is still forming in his head.
Nothing
I
like amnesia.
okay, more like amnesia, but that the amnesia makes it a mystery. Thank you.
Yes.
um I am going to come right out and say I tried pausing the TV when he was having the flashbacks,
Oh,
trying to
yeah.
figure out whose face it was. I
They
couldn't.
don't show a face. No.
Nope. Nope. I
They
was
know
even
that Hardy's would figure it all out if they showed a face.
well, and I was even looking for little details like facial hair. I was like, is there any facial hair? Is it Edwin? I don't think it is Edwin
They've
who
said
shot
it's not.
him.
They've
Yeah.
said it's not Edwin.
Yeah, it's not Edwin who
Um,
shot him, but we still think he knows more than he's
he still could know more. He still could have been there. Um, the umbrella. There is an umbrella in that scene that he
that
sees in
Lucas
his
is holding.
flashback. And someone from the writing team or the props department or somebody has commented that that was not recovered at the scene of the crime. So someone took the umbrella.
Okay.
So that's
And
a key piece of evidence.
the trajectory of the bullet suggests that Lucas and the shooter were inches away from each other and that they probably struggled for the gun.
Mm-hmm. I
So,
keep going back to he greeted the person.
sort of.
So he knew who they were.
Yeah.
This
That
was not a stranger.
he said, "What are you doing here?"
So it is someone he knew.
So
I
it's
had
definitely
met.
not Pike because he didn't
Well,
know Pike.
exactly, right? He wouldn't have known Pike. Also, I keep wondering to myself, like, if it was some character like Wyman Walden that we suspected, like, I don't feel like that would have been his reaction. I mean, maybe. But if it was somebody that clearly should have been in jail or had a severe vendetta against him that was super obvious like that, I really feel like he would have had a different reaction than just what are you doing here?
Yeah, but it was
So I feel like it's
said with
someone he felt,
contempt. It
yeah,
was said with contempt. So
yeah. Also, I don't think it would have been, I think they've said it's not Jeanette, but I don't think it would have been Jeanette because
no,
he would have had more contempt for that.
yeah,
Like he would have been more like taken aback. What?
well, and it was obviously a man. That the shooter is not a woman.
Okay.
So, oh, okay, fine. If we're gonna play it like that, the stance and the clothing, what I
Mm-hmm.
saw, it was not a female figure. So it
Okay.
at least it could, I mean, it could be a woman dressed as a man, but it was not
Right.
a female, at least a recognizable female. And the part of the face that I did see, it just had a very masculine structure. It did not appear feminine. So, but I I don't know. It just I don't know exactly what to think
I
in that
don't
regard.
either. I don't either, but I have a feeling he's going to continue to have flashbacks.
Yeah. More and
Of
more is going to get revealed to him.
different minor things. And
Yep.
then my guess is he will see something, in real time
Yeah.
that is from that flashback.
Yeah.
Whether
Well,
it be the
that's what brought back
umbrella.
the first one is the picture. The
Right.
picture of the scene is what brought back the
Right.
first
But
one.
no, but I mean, like, he sees somebody holding that umbrella, or he sees
Oh,
somebody with shoes that look like maybe shoes that he saw in the flashback or
I see. I
something.
see.
And then he immediately has the flash of like the whole thing happening and
Yeah,
seeing that
possibly.
person.
And we find out from the new private investigating team of Bill and Rosemary that Clayton Pike has an employment trail to Union City Holdings, which is
Ties into Montague.
Montague.
Yeah.
Yes. So, I mean, Montague has to be involved somehow. He just has to be. We don't know exactly how, but and who knows who he got.
There has to be more. There has to be more there.
More.
Yeah.
Yeah. And who knows who Montague got to do the dirty work for him, but he has to be involved somehow because he was very vindictive when Lucas outdid the both of them. So yeah, that's going to continue to be a mystery.
Certainly will.
And
good thing I have my hat.
Good thing you have your hat. Maybe I should find a magnifying glass and I think we've got something around here somewhere. So when it's getting closer to being solved, maybe I'll bring it out.
I'm gonna be so disappointed if this mystery gets solved this season and then season 12 has like nothing mysterious.
Well, and the other thing is if this is solved and it just kind of deflates,
No, you have to build on this. Rosemary and Bill have to start a detective agency and she can stay based in Hope Valley because of Goldie and everything and the Valley Voice, and he can go and do like field work out at different, he can go to Union City and he can go to Hamilton, he can go to Benson Hills, and he can go wherever he needs to go and like get his Buxton and get his like evidence, gather evidence, interview people, and they can just be their own little Sherlock and Watson.
Okay, so who's Sherlock and who's Watson?
I think it's gonna trade back and forth. Honestly,
fair
depending
enough.
upon they both kind of take the lead at times, but yeah, just depends on the situation. But ultimately, we all know Rosemary's in charge.
Don't tell Bill that.
Don't tell Bill, but ultimately we know.
Well, one way or another, we hope that it gets solved, and we hope that it gets resolved in a satisfying way, because there's just too much happening for the situation to just deflate, and there have been those situations before where it seemed like something really big was building and then it turns out to not be that big of a deal, and I was like, oh, that could have been really good.
Yeah.
So that's what I really hope, that this is solved in a grander way than usual. It doesn't have to be a grand way, but I just hope that there's a reason for all this buildup.
Sure. And it appears to be the biggest buildup we've had on the show because it started in the finale. I mean, the mystery of who shot him started in the finale of last year.
True.
And it appears to be going all season. To the end of this season, minimally. So that's, I think, the longest we've had an actual specific situation building. Others have been partial season.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So on that,
and others didn't require a hat.
Nope. The other ones didn't require a hat, and so
way more serious.
We'll leave all of you hearties to stew in all of this. So we will see you next time when we see Uncle Tommy.
Uncle Tommy.
And I'm sure we'll have a lot to say about that. But
might need to rewatch season 2.
Oh, Mom. You go ahead and do that. But until then, we hope that all of you remember how much you are loved, how valued you are, and we hope that you have a fabulous morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in your day. And we'll see you next time for episode 7. Bye!
Bye, Hearties.